Hi, I'm Zoe with Paranormal Extraction and welcome to my show. Thank you for viewing. We have Russell Brinegar on today with the Crop Circle Mystery. And guess what's so great about this? You not only get to talk to Russell, but Dee is also going to be doing the interview. So this is the only time you're going to see me. This is going to be fantastic, something totally new. And I know you guys want to know about this because wow. I mean, do we really know? I don't know.
Hey, everybody, Paranormal Extraction, D here, and we rustled up Russell Brinegar. Yeah, so we're going to talk about, what's that, sir? Hi. Hi. He said hi. So I'm taking over for Zoe today because I happen to love this topic very much, and I happen to like the way Russell is going to put a show together today. He's got some wonderful PowerPoints. We figured that out technically just a little while ago, so I'm very excited. There's a lot of energy going on around here, that technical side of things, and I think we got it wired, don't we?
Yep,
I think so.
we got it.
So why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself. That's standard off for these type of shows. I got my coach back there telling me to keep my posture, and not stare at my over here. How you doing?
Well, my name is Russ Brinegar, and I was pretty much a hard science guy. I grew up down in Titusville, Florida, so I was fortunate enough to watch all the Apollo moon rockets go off. But I was brought up as a scientist, and I pretty much held to that paradigm until 2009, and I had a massive heart attack and a near-death experience, which prompted me into all kinds of paranormal research. I started out with ghosts and eventually moved into UFOs and cryptids and the crop circle mystery, which we're going to talk about today.
Beautiful. That was quick. Right to the bone, bro. Yes, sir. So after the near-death experience, I just wanted to make this clear. You were something happened there where you wanted to find out more about something.
Right.
Something.
Yeah, I had always adhered to the physicalist scientific paradigm where your consciousness is an epiphenomenon of your brain, and when you die, you're dead. It's just eternally unconsciousness. And what I found out through this near-death experience is that there is a larger layer of reality that we wake up to when we actually die. Your physical life isn't all there is to this existence. So with that knowledge, I went forward in life, and I started out researching NDEs because I wanted to find out what happened to me, because I encountered beings that I would describe as intelligent lightning. That's the only way I know how to put it, is intelligent lightning. And through the course of years of research, I think I've put together a few data points to give myself and others a little bit more insight into this reality that we're embedded in.
That's pretty amazing. So then tell us how you started to get involved with crop circles, then how that changed from your scientific self. What brought you into that realm to make you want to be
Okay,
you want to share about crop circles and what knowledge do you have?
Okay, well, in 2009, when this happened, I was pretty bewildered about what that experience was. I looked into all the ketamine scientific explanations that your dying brain is lacking oxygen and you're hallucinating and all that. I didn't buy that because the experience is pretty vivid. But I started out researching near-death experiences, and I found out that there was some commonalities with what I experienced with the hundreds of other near-death experiencers out there. And I wondered what else was real. So I spent the nice night in the Rhodes Hotel here in Atlanta, Indiana. It's an alleged haunted house with people with EVP equipment. So I looked into the ghost phenomenon, researched that for a couple of years, and then eventually fell into the UFO rabbit hole. And when I started reading about UFOs, it took me a couple of years to even accept the phenomenon is real. But I had this experience under my belt from '09 to base it on. So I was a lot more open-minded to it after my near-death experience than I was before. And I eventually had the epiphany, the aha moment that, oh, this is a real phenomenon. And from the UFOs, Dr. Kenneth Ring wrote a real good book called The Omega Project, where he actually compared near-death experiences to alien abduction experiences. And that's the first introduction I had into the UFOs. But it just went from near-death experiences to ghosts to UFOs to the crop circle mystery.
Nice. Nice. That's very cool. So you way back in the beginning then you started with the antiquity of crop circles way back before most people talk about it. So you had a couple of dates that we discussed that were way earlier than what I had been enlightened by some programs that are on the cable TV, if you will. But you had Alexander Hamilton was involved with them, if I'm not mistaken. That's way back there.
This might be a good point to pull up the PowerPoint.
Okay. That's great. There we go.
Okay. So this is going to be about the crop circle mystery. As I mentioned, my name is Russ Brinegar. I'm an author of a book called Overlords of the Singularity and an NDE experiencer. And this presentation is all invoking the Fair Use Act. I used Creative Commons images from the internet, where it goes through the filter, where they're not copyrighted or anything. It's for instructional purposes only.
Really?
1950s, it starts out, a lot of people think this phenomenon started in the 70s, but it actually started in the 50s, according to the Carson family in Wiltshire, England. And Wiltshire is where most of the modern crop circles are coming from, near Stonehenge, even though it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
The Carsons own the biggest farm where simple single circle crop circles first started showing up.
Really?
And you've got the patriarchs of the family, Will, Shirley, and Tim, that all three of those report that over time the formations became more and more complex.
Nice.
So we're thinking in the modern era, anyway, there is the 1678 mowing devil, but we really don't know if that's the same phenomenon. But they started out real simple in one circle formations. And by coincidence, in the 1950s, when Wiltshire started getting single circle crop circles, people were seeing these tin can looking, looked like somebody threw a hubcap in the air, a 1950s flying saucer. They were dull, shiny metallic discs, typically 30 feet diameter.
Yeah.
So the way I'm looking at this is that the modern flying saucer phenomenon sightings coincided with early single circle crop circles.
Right.
And then they started going into more than one circle.
Right.
And over time, we see that they're starting to get more and more complex with multiple circles and lines. And part of this mystery is the fact that there's no footprints, there's no tire tracks, they're done at night. And there certainly are human crop circle makers. As you can see, they get more and more complex. But in 1991, 40 years after the Carson family started seeing crop circles show up in Wiltshire, these two yahoos, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, said they went out and created all the crop circles.
Hang on a minute there. That's the one that bothers me the most, Russell.
Okay.
They get so much credit. And I understand you. You said yahoos, and that's what they are. That it's not, yahoos is exactly what they are, because I'm a little pissed at those guys, because I can't go out there and make one, which would be wonderful. But they, now that we had a little discussion about this, you and me, that
Right.
We know what real crop circles look like. We know about the nodes. We know how they bend, and we know about the radioactivity that blows up the nodes and folds these things over.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Oh, totally we will. I just had to interrupt right there because
I know these guys are a sore spot for you.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, one thing a lot of people aren't aware of about Doug and Dave is they were inspired by an actual UFO encounter in 1966 in Tully, Queensland, Australia, that left behind a depressed area of reeds. And that's actually what their inspiration was, to get out and do this. And then I guess they became amused. But as far as the nodes, Dr. Eljo Hasselhoff has done a lot of research into this, and he determined that the crop circles have node elongation measurements from the center of the formation to the perimeter. And he found that in some of the crop circles, these node elongation measurements conform to what he calls the Beer-Lambert law of electromagnetism. So whenever the node measurements conform to this mathematical formula, it was in fact created by a point source of radiation. Now, he published his peer-reviewed results in a scientific journal called Physiologia Plantarum in the year 2004. So this kind of negates, some people think that the crop circles that have the node elongations are made by the US military, by satellites, but when he does his calculations, he can actually determine how far above the crop the point source of radiation was, 16 to 30 feet or whatever, how powerful it was, and, based on the perimeter of the circle. So he was a major contributor.
That's interesting.
Here's the node elongations created by internal heat, and this causes the plants to fall over instead of breaking. Anytime a crop circle is made with boards and ropes or a GPS with lasers, a group of human circle makers, this is not going to happen. The stalks are just going to be smashed and broken.
Yes.
So it's pretty easy to tell the ones that were created by a point source of radiation and the ones that were created by humans.
That's right.
The node expulsion cavities appear in some of the crop circles because the internal steam and moisture bursts out the nodes, and you're not going to get that if somebody's out there with a board and ropes.
No, you are not, sir.
Now, the interesting thing about the human-made crop formations is there's a number of circle maker groups out there, and some of them report they work at night and they witness luminous orbs in the sky. And it's almost as if the UFO intelligences are working with them in some cases. Now, there are hucksters, ufology, crop circles, there's pranksters that just like to see likes on the internet and how many people they can fool. And we've got to take that into consideration. But the real deal is out there, and the mystery and the question is who or what is creating these things. Here's one in 2001 that was apparently a reply to our Arecibo message that Earth sent in 1974.
Right.
The
That's
top
classic.
portion are formulas for sugars and bases of nucleotides of DNA. The middle portion depicts the number of nucleotides in human DNA, and then the bottom portion reveals the DNA differences between human DNA and a short, large-headed alien, what we would consider typically the Greys.
Right.
Here's one in 2002 in Chilbolton, Stockbridge, United Kingdom. There's this face that you can only see from the air.
Yeah, that one is amazing. So is this one. Was just as amazing. That this wasn't like the one you're going to talk about next. There underneath the, I believe it's a satellite listening device. It's a telescope. That's what it is. And then that next slide you had there.
This is 2002. It's called the Crabwood Crop Circle in the United Kingdom.
And they
your gray alien face with a digital message that this really smart people decoded. And what the message said was, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. There is good out there. We oppose deception, and the conduit is closing.
Yeah. So what do you do? Hey, just 1 second.
That's
What
heavy.
What does Russell Brinegar think about that?
That's heavy, Russell, what you just said.
Okay, well, it goes back into some other research I did about an Italian contactee group in the 1950s to the 60s called the Friendship Group. They were also called the W56 Group. And they had encounters with humanoid extraterrestrials that said that they were from the precursor to the spirit world. And they apparently were a very benevolent group of people in some sort of federation. And they said that humanity had an enemy, which was an artificial race from Orion who worshiped technology.
Yikes.
And then if you compare that with William Bromley's book, not the Garden of Eden, but I forget the title of his book, but William Bromley, The Gods of Eden, something like that. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he started out trying to research the underlying causes of war. And what happened was he concluded to his shock that humanity was involved with two factions of extraterrestrials. One was very benevolent, that he called the Maverick race, And then the custodial race was this nefarious group that was using humanity for their own purposes. And it kind of smacks of what Charles Fort said. Charles Fort said he thought the earth was owned by someone, all others warned off. And then a zoologist named Ivan T. Sanderson mentioned that he thought the earth was a farm and we were the crop. So apparently there's non-human entities that have our best interest in their mind. They want us to spiritually develop and develop technologically on our own. And there's this other group that worships technology that is trying to force us into some kind of premature singularity. And that's what my book was about that I wrote in 2016. But regarding the crop circles, Barbara Lamb is the closest that I resonate with personally on her take on the crop circle phenomenon.
Sure.
She personally visited the crop circle formations in England for 27 straight years in the summertime.
It must have been wonderful to get out there and feel there's some
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of feel the energy when you're inside of the crop circle. I've heard she must
Yeah.
have felt it, and she must have transferred that energy to many people, because if you're lucky enough to be around in one of those hits, I would love to go in there and see what it felt like, and see if you're, to experience the phones turning off, and know, like your phones, today's modern phones aren't working. Even cameras aren't working properly because of the batteries in them. I've heard some interesting stories about that. Some people go to the crop circles and just chill and meditate and suck in all the energy that's supposedly coming and radiating from these crop circles. What did she say about that?
I resonate with her take on the flying saucer phenomenon as well as the crop circle phenomenon, because the presentations are getting more complex over time.
Yes.
And it's almost like a calling for more and more humans to pay attention, that there's a communication process going on and an unfolding of human consciousness. As we acquire more technical knowledge and more spiritual knowledge, and more people awaken to the fact that this is real, the formations of the crop circles as well as the flying saucers are getting much more complex.
I agree completely with that entire paragraph right there.
It showed up in 2009.
I know.
It's a Leonardo da Vinci Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
And this popped up in the Netherlands.
Right.
And then in 2009, this is a squid-like crop circle.
Mm-hmm.
In
Jellyfish.
2011,
Yeah.
this is Windmill Hill. It kind of looked like the spirograph.
Sure.
So they're getting more complicated.
They're getting amazingly complicated. Like, it just can't possibly be. That's how complicated. That is a fractal. That next one is amazing.
Yeah.
You're comparing it to, okay, go. Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Fractal presentations are now showing up in crop circle formations. The fractals, what they are is an infinitely complex, never-ending pattern that are self-similar across different scales, both small and large.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got crop circles popping up in the modern era that show fractals. There's ones that show what's called the Mandelbrot set.
Yeah.
This is a set of complex numbers represented by C, in which the calculus function f c times z equals z squared plus c, where it does not diverge into infinity. Now, I don't claim to completely understand that, but this was first defined and drawn by Robert W. Brooks and Peter Metelsky in 1978. So there's crop circles out there that are displaying the fractals, the Mandelbrot set, and also the Julia set. This is another calculus function, J function named after Gaston Julia, whose work began the study of complex dynamics in the early 19th century. So we've gone from a simple circle in 1950s throughout the 70s with the flying saucer phenomenon, and the crop circles becoming more and more bizarre and more complex. So that's what we're looking at as a communication process. Whoever or whatever is doing both of these phenomena have access to the human collective unconscious. So here's a picture of the 1950s to 1970s flying saucers, and here's a depiction of modern UFO sightings. They've turned from these tin can hubcap looking presentations to fantastic light ships and morphing, shape-shifting forms that have a light so bright that if you stare at it, it's like an arc welder's light. You can actually get something called Klieg's conjunctivitis. And
That's-
there's other cases where people have had close encounters with UFOs where they have concussion injuries, like nosebleeds and ear bleeds.
What do you
So-
think? Let me ask you, interrupt. What do you think? Why do you think there's lights on them, on the UFOs of any kind? Why do you suppose they enjoy putting, like, okay, let's go back to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That movie would have been a lot more boring, let's just say boring, less exciting, if they didn't have all the lights going with the music. You
Yeah.
know, what is it with the lights, do you think? Because they're not always lights on them, but there are. It's always been a phenomenal question that I ask about the phenomena is why do they like lights?
Okay. My take on that is that the reason that there's lights on the UFOs and the reason that so many people encounter humanoid looking aliens is because that's what we currently expect them to be. If you look back into 1896-97 during the Great Airship Mystery, the only thing people could conceive of back then was like a floating dirigible. So that entire year, and here in England and other places, people saw these wacky looking Willy Wonka dirigible things with big spotlights and humanoid euphonauts that had long beards and talked English, and that's what they expected at the time. Apparently, this phenomenon knows the human thought process very well, and they have the capability of transmogrifying their energy into physical manifestations that we can see temporarily, and it has to do with our expectations. So as we move along in our consciousness evolution, our knowledge base and our consciousness, the phenomenon will continue to morph. That's I fully expect this to continue to morph.
Okay.
Okay, now this is where it gets weird. The key to understanding this crop circle mystery, in my opinion, based on the experience that I had in '09 and the research I've done since then, this begins with a man named Winston Bostic. He lived 1916 to 1991. Now, his significance in this mystery is that he discovered plasmoids, plasma focus and plasma vortex phenomenon. And he invented a plasma gun. And when he found that the individual plasmoids are shot from a plasma gun into a solid object, it went straight through that solid object as if it wasn't there. And this really shocked him. And then when he would shoot multiple plasmoids out of his device, they appeared to have an intelligence of their own, and they were self-arranging themselves into a spiral, much like the spiral galaxies that we see in outer space. So we're learning from this that the plasmoids themselves appear to either be connected into human consciousness or have an intelligence and consciousness of their own, and they just do their own thing. Now, in the 1960s, there was a fellow named Philip Klass. He was a UFO debunker, an arch skeptic. He lived in the 60s to 2005. Now, Philip Klass did not believe we were being visited by extraterrestrials from another planet. In other words, flesh and blood people like you and me, maybe they came from a different evolutionary stock and happened to live on another planet, and they're getting on a spaceship and traveling light years to Earth, to leave designs in our crops. He thought that was crazy. So he believed that the UFO phenomenon was a misunderstood plasma phenomenon, just like Winston Bostic. And as it turns out, the arch debunker of UFOs was onto something. He was actually the most correct in his interpretation of the UFO phenomenon of all the people out there. Another person is a psychonaut named Terence McKenna. He died in 2000. But Terence McKenna did all kinds of psychedelics, and he would report his experiences of talking to machine elves and interdimensional beings. And his take on UFOs was that they were disguising themselves as spaceships visiting from another planet so as not to freak us out. In other words, the underlying intelligence behind the UFO phenomenon, including crop circles, is so bizarre and so exotic that they have to present themselves as something we can understand, which would be spaceships and aliens.
Right. Okay, that's cool. I dig it. Just like Sasquatch, we don't know them, but they could be the same thing. But
Yeah.
we don't understand them, and that's how one group likes to come down here and feel. That's what Zoe says. this world
Yeah.
is a place to feel differently than if you were flying around in a spaceship, and
Right.
you've gone so far in advance that you're not a creature that feels love or this or that anymore. You're just a creature from the future that can throw out some plasmoids and throw out some whatever your capability is. Because, like I told you during our interview, that the crop circles seem to be like a kid that got better at drawing
Right.
on his computer and could drag and drop on a
Right.
wheat field and say, "Look what I can do." See,
Yeah.
I remember when I could only do one circle and a circle around it. Well, now look at what we can do.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
know, when you're young, you before you learn to ride a bicycle, you have one with training wheels, and your father sends you off on the training wheels, hoping you don't fall and scrape yourself from head to toe. It's almost as if the phenomenon is reaching out a hand to us and guiding us through a higher state of awareness of the reality that we're embedded in.
yeah.
So
Okay.
Dr. Jacques Vallée, he's got a really good YouTube lecture. I think it's called The Theory of Everything, but he revealed his conclusions that it's a interdimensional phenomenon, and that beyond physical reality lies a metaphysical realm of informational structures. And then if you watch some of Dr. Bernardo Kastrup's videos, he wrote a book called The Idea of the World, and he's taking scientists from their physicalist paradigm where consciousness is a byproduct of inanimate subatomic particles and flip-flopping that to his paradigm of idealism where consciousness itself or the quantum field is the irreducible underlying layer of reality, and then the material universe is like a thought that's materialized from the cosmic mind. So the scientists themselves are changing from physicalism to idealism and realizing that consciousness is fundamental.
Well, on that note, we also discussed the abilities of some people here on Earth that think they can get together as a group, think about a shape, and the next thing you know, there's a crop circle out there somewhere that they actually thought about. I don't know the truism of all that, but I did listen to the program when it was on TV, and it was very like, okay, so that's one incident, but I wondered, is that true? Have you heard anything about a group of
Yeah.
people, humans, that can think about a shape, then the next thing you know, there's a crop circle. And on top of that, people can get together in groups and summon spaceships, and because they all think that they're in the like mind and they think they're safe, and they believe that the extraterrestrials or whoever this is going to pick up on the vibes that they have as they're sitting around. Let's just say, like, where's that ranch? What's the name of that ranch that I needed? Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch. They go out there and they sit as a group because they're all like-minded. And here comes all these things, everything from spiritual things that you can see on their cameras. They're supposed to be able to summon down the
Yep.
the crafts. Have you ever done that?
Not personally,
Yeah.
but I've read enough cases where I believe that it's true that there's pilots that have flown over fields that had nothing in them, and then
Yeah.
an hour later come back and there's a crop circle there.
Yeah.
People, individuals, and groups that have meditated on a certain design, and then the next day that design is in the crop in the field.
Yeah. That's amazing.
What's going on? What seems to be going on? I don't have all the answers, but I have some of them. I feel like it's a symbiotic, interactive phenomenon with a higher than human intelligence that is guiding us step by step into an awareness of the reality that we're involved with.
Right.
What we're not involved with is a bunch of inanimate subatomic particles that arrange themselves on their own in such a complex fashion that consciousness is like a byproduct of that. That can be ruled out. That's called the hard problem of consciousness, and the physicists are stuck with that because you can rearrange inanimate objects any way you want. You're never going to get qualia. You're never going to get the taste of chocolate, the feeling of falling in love, of consciousness out of that. Now, there are correlations between the brain and what we experience, but it's the same thing. You can mess with a tuner on a television, and that doesn't mean that the picture is inside the TV. You know, what you're looking at on the television is inside the television. The television receiver is receiving a signal, and through the electronics of the television, it's producing an image. So the way human cognitive apparatus is built is to collapse probability waves. Like Nikola Tesla said that our brain is not producing anything, it's receiving stuff.
Yeah.
And so these probability waves are coming from a larger source, and our cognitive apparatus collapses the probability wave into what we see and experience with our senses. And this happens not only with humans, but with dogs or insects or any biological form that has, there's something that it's like to be these creatures. And whether it's a spider or an ant or a bacterium, they all have some level of consciousness to them. And it just depends on, how their little brain is operating. I've always wondered, like when you see a bee fly around,
Yeah.
if from their perspective, if they're just taking like a leisurely stroll, that their perception of time is way different than ours. And we see them going zzz, where they're just like taking an afternoon. Okay. Well, I'll go back in then.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying I'd like to look at your big face sometimes. It's bigger than mine.
The reason I don't do it is it takes a few seconds.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. We don't care.
Just didn't want to delay.
Oh, yeah, I got you. I know. I'm just trying to see how that looks. This is the first time we've ever had a wonderful slideshow like this.
It's fun, isn't
Kidding
it?
me? Yeah.
Okay, so
Wonderful.
we stopped at Jacques Vallée. Now I'm going to take you back 13.5 billion years to the event that's called the Big Bang. And in the beginning, whether this is the latest cycle of a never-ending cycle of universes, or whether the universe, started fresh 13.5 billion years ago, it started off as something called a quark gluon plasma. Plasma. You say tomato, I say tomato.
Yeah.
This is still around. In fact, the scientists are saying that 99% of our universe is plasma. Now, what is plasma? This is non-atomic matter that has incomplete atoms. It's non-atomic matter. It consists of electrons, protons, neutrons that are not held together as tightly as atomic matter, and ions. And it's also called dark matter. So the scientists are now saying that possibly 99.9% of our universe is plasma.
Wow.
So we're just at the tip of the iceberg in our little three-dimensional reality, and there's a much, much, much larger universe, the plasmaverse or whatever you want to call it.
Really?
Now, Earth itself is not just the rocky core that we live on and we think of as Earth. We actually live in a plasmasphere. There is a layer of plasma that's in a toroidal form. It looks like a donut that follows the magnetic field that the Earth generates.
Okay.
So we've got a plasma world all around us.
Mm-hmm.
The question is it inhabited? And some of the smartest people on the planet, like Nikola Tesla and Guglielmo Marconi, the father of modern electricity, they say yes, that the plasma sphere is in fact inhabited. Now, some of the astrophysicists are coming out with some shocking information that the Earth actually has 3 moons. What they're called is Kordylewski clouds, and they're consistent of plasma, and they exist at the L4 and L5 Lagrange point. It's like a balance point between the Earth and the moon. So there's like clouds of invisible plasma. Then this was confirmed in the year 2019.
What?
Our sun is a plasma sphere, and what they're calling solar wind is thought to be plasmoids,
Okay.
possibly having an intelligence of their own, that are coming from the sun to the plasma sphere that we live in,
Okay.
penetrating the plasma sphere, going straight through the Earth. And as crop circle researcher Patty Greer says, she thinks the luminous orbs are coming up out of the ground. Well, since most of the crop circles appear at night, if the sun shoots a plasmoid through the plasma sphere we live in, through the Earth, then the people on the other side of the Earth would see these orbs coming up out of the ground at night.
Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Now, Robert Temple, the fellow that is one of the smartest people I know, he wrote The Sirius Mystery in 1998 of how the Dogon people knew about Sirius B before the scientists knew about Sirius B. In
Mhm.
2022, he just came out with a brand new book, fresh off the press, called A New Science of Heaven. I've listened to it about 10 times. It talks about all this, and this is cutting edge stuff.
Hot off the press.
Now, one data point that I like to bring in, there's a body of channeled material called the raw material that I resonate with pretty well. And with all channeled
Raw.
material, you got to figure it's coming through a human brain, so it's not going to be perfect. I don't think anyway. But if you watch any interviews with the channeler, Carla Ruckert, there's no way that she just made all this stuff up. But it's a body of channel material channeled by Carla Ruckert in 1981 that states every one of us has a sixth density higher self that exists in what humans call the distant future. And the sun is inhabited by sixth density light beings. So a very bizarre picture comes into focus here that if the sun is inhabited by sixth density plasma beings, and they're coming here to Earth's plasmasphere and interacting with humans in bizarre ways. I may have just lost a whole bunch of people, but
No, that's okay. Hey, listen. So they're
if you
shooting.
look into it deep
Yeah.
enough, you'll potentially agree with me.
Well, the Ra means the sun, and one of my favorite characters in the Egyptian world was Akhenaten, and he took the people when he became the king, I believe he's a king, what, pharaoh, when he was a pharaoh, and he took all the people that were, I guess, alive at that time, and they built another city, and I do know the name of it. I just can't think of it, but it was all about the sun. He took all the other gods and goddesses, and they were nothing. Only one god, and that was Ra, and that's how everything went until he passed away. And
Are you talking
Tutankhamun.
about Pharaoh Akhenaten?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Pharaoh Akhenaten may have been one of these tall skulled people they refer to as Homo capensis.
I believe that as well. You could see the
Might have been
pictures.
just that's a whole nother show.
Sure.
The antediluvian Atlantean world. So
I love that. It's great.
the thing with the crop circles is the people that are the true believers in the crop circles as a real phenomenon are saying that they're being done by orbs. They're being done by light orbs. And the question is who or what is behind it. And one of the reasons that I resonate so well with the raw material is in 2009, when I encountered several ethereal beings as I was dying of a heart attack. One of those beings was a transcended version of myself. And for some reason, I was led to look almost straight at the sun. So the sun, to me, because of my subjective experience, has something to do with this whole thing.
Okay.
But
hey, listen, I'm going to tell you another thing right now because that's what you strongly believe. I was speaking to a person once in my past, and she said, "Well, have you ever looked at the sun, D, and see the spinning disc in there?" And I went, "What? You're out of your mind. You're not supposed to look at the sun." So I was thinking, what in the hell is she talking about? So it became a practice of mine daily to look at the sun with each eye, one eye closed and the other eye open. And Zoe was going, "What in the hell are you doing, dude? You're going to go blind." Well, I tell everybody this. I even told one of my greatest workers that I work with, Russell, go home. This is your homework. This is when I first met him. And stare at the sun and see if you can see the spinning disc, see if I'm crazy. So he told me the next day that he went home and he failed at his homework because he couldn't look at it any longer than 2 seconds. Okay, you have to stare at it for a minute before you can actually see this. There's a disc that spins inside of the light. It spins in there. You can see it spinning, and I can't remember. I think it's clockwise. But after you do that, and then you're done with that, everything around you has a warm color. Is all warmed up to a reddish glint on the world as you're recovering from your sun stare. Yeah, what do you think of that?
well, there was a reason that I was guided to look at the sun if I had a sixth density version of myself who lives on the sun, who appeared to me in my yard during my heart attack. I just got a brief glimpse and realized that as I'm speaking to you, there's already a part of me that lives on the other side. And this applies to all biological life, all humans.
Okay, that's
There's
amazing.
You're currently in what the physicists call superposition, where you're in two states at once. You've got a part of yourself that lives in the plasma world that's in a timeless state, and then your material life is just that. It's a temporary material manifestation.
Yeah, I want to be the other guy for a minute.
Okay.
I want to see what that feels like, man.
I know what it feels like.
Zoe claims to have been there.
I know.
She's talked to these people recently. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I found in common with my own near-death experience compared to others that I've listened to on the Jeff Mara podcast and others, he talks to a lot of NDE experiencers, is this loss of fear of death. I don't like pain, but I don't fear death because I got a glimpse of the afterlife. Awesome. And I came to realize that the entire UFO phenomenon has to do with what we call the afterlife, the other side, where you go when you die. Awesome. And there's even in Edgar Casey's writings, he talks of an Atlantean device called the Firestone.
Yes.
That would allow the Atlanteans to talk to the other side with a technological means.
Right.
And even Nikola Tesla tried to do that. He tried to create a spirit radio that he could talk to the discarnate world with. Yeah, and he didn't have to work out his ideas because you were telling me that he would get those blueprints sent to him and he would do the blueprints, and here you go with this amazing state-of-the-art technology that only this cat got, basically. Right. I believe in all the other guys that were working on stuff like Westinghouse and who's the other electricity guy, that they were having that big battle and they stepped all over Tesla because they didn't have the money or the knowledge. But as later research, I found out that Tesla's research is coming into the light now. Would you not agree? Oh, yeah. I mean, when Tesla was alive, he said a lot of things that were absolutely true, that our brain is a receiver, that we're receiving information. It's like a transceiver, and that there's invisible entities all around us. So if we're living in a plasma sphere with like a Tootsie Pop with the Earth as the center, we've got intelligent beings that are invisible to us all around us all the time. And occasionally, John Keel calls it transmogrification, where the plasma world can transmogrify its energy into a temporarily apparent manifestation of an object, according to what our expectations are. As long as we think people are coming here from another planet, we're going to see flying saucers. Now, I'm not saying people are not coming here from another planet, but they're likely talking to the highest intelligence on Earth, and it's not humans. It's the plasma beings that live in the plasma sphere. What? And then they're using their. Don't you think that's like with some of the wonderful things that are being invented and that things come? You think that they're getting messages directly from the plasma people just because we are a receiver? They're going, we're picking that guy. He looks like somebody that could get our message across. Boom, and he starts building stuff. And then there was Michelangelo, and back in the day when he was just an artist, but some of the things that gentleman painted and came up with was astounding for the time that he was alive. He was like so far ahead, and he disappeared for 2 or 3 days once in his life, and then came back with these astounding abilities, let alone to be able to paint as wonderful as he did. He was an inventor, and he was amazing for the time. It was like so many light years ahead of who was the people of those days. Don't you know? So you think that's a plasma people or people? Yeah, you call them. They don't mind. No, they do not. I would not imagine that they would if we're being awakened to them. If I could just see one, I'd be solid. Even Whitley Strieber, over the years since he had a visit from the visitors, is trying to figure out the context of the whole situation. In his latest book, A New World, he says that they're attempting a symbiotic relationship with us. And there's several abductees that have said some weird things, like Betty Andreasen. She's one of the most famous alien abductees. And she claims that she was told that humans are the larval form of the Greys. What? So there may be some really strange things that if we were just like told outright, we just completely freak our minds out about, that we have to be eased into, a little bit at a time. So as time goes on, the phenomena is showing more and more of itself. I don't personally think there'll ever be a big D disclosure where the government comes out and tells us what's going on. The phenomenon seems to like to work with individuals in small groups and guide them along as they see fit, as that person or group is ready.
Yeah, I imagine they're having a wonderful time trying to figure out who that is with all the strange civilizations that we have. They have to pick and choose because I don't think it's such a this diverse world with uh, civilizations, races, and that type of thing. Um, Makes you wonder why the Germans were selected to be so smart in their engineering and their abilities at that certain stage, and they may still be. But now there's Americans, and the thing with the computers blows my mind. How smart some of these people are at writing them and creating these motherboards and these chips for everything. Do you think that plays into anything? Because Elon Musk is thinking about, has a big plan of sticking computer chips and things into people and having them open so they'll be open to the whole uh, let's just call it Google world.
Oh, now we're getting into transhumanism, and that's a
Yeah,
whole other show.
and that's crazy. So that's beyond. I wonder how the plasmoids are thinking about that. I wonder if that's what they want.
Well, that's a good question because there does seem to be a faction. Personally, I think all the so-called flying saucer crashes are staged. They are little gifts of technology that they just so happen to be just a little bit beyond what we can understand. So we work on it for a few years, and then we incorporate it into our own technology. So yeah, that's the thesis of my book that we'll talk about in another show.
Yeah.
Overlords of the Singularity. How there is one faction that's guiding us into what I see as a premature technological singularity. There's already a company called Sanctuary Incorporated, whose company mission statement is to provide sanctuary for sentient robots before we release them into the general public. So there's a lot of high-tech stuff coming down the pike that's going to freak a lot of people out. Paraplegics and wheelchairs are going to walk again. Blind people are going to see, through this technology that's coming out.
Yes, sir. I'm going to keep telling you that. Oh, yeah. See? Now keep going. Sorry to interrupt. You're so handsome.
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, at 67, I'll take it.
You look great, Dougie. I'm telling you. Okay, go.
All right. So as far as the technological singularity for people, so they know what that is, it's a point in time. Ray Kurzweil thinks it's going to happen around 2045 to 2080, where we develop AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, human level artificial intelligence. And Dr. Nick Bostrom from Oxford University thinks out of the 56 companies that are currently working on AGI, that the first company that gets there is going to rule the planet. So there's people like Ben Goertzel and other AI engineers that are trying to get the cognitive architecture of our first artificial intelligence correct, so that the planet won't be destroyed or humanity won't be taken over. But as far as artificial superintelligence running the planet and moving into a fully automated planet, that scares the bejesus out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it could be a utopia where there's no money and everything's free. We all collectively own all the equipment that produces all material goods and services, and we have access to it. Or it could be that a very tiny group of technocrats own it and turn us all into slaves.
Just like we are now.
You've got the singularity prophets, and you've got the doomsayers that aren't too big of a fans of this singularity coming at us full speed.
Okay, so because we're awakening, you mean we're getting hip to some stuff, but what about the people like us that are like, I believe, a step ahead to want to believe in this stuff here? That goes back to my statement I said a little while ago. Sometimes I bring up UFOs or I bring up anything in this paranormal world, and I don't get the response that I expect, and I've learned how to deal with that, Russell. I expect all the people that I know to get on our program and watch everything that we put on. I expect it.
People have already turned it off because we think we're nuts. And I have the advantage because I was 54 years old, where my entire life I looked at people who are into UFOs and ghosts as cognitively deficient.
Yeah.
that they were willing to believe something with no good evidence
Okay.
because they just wanted that to be true.
Okay.
Either that or they were hallucinating and had mental problems.
Yes. Okay.
So I can still relate to the hardcore physicalist scientist who
Sure.
looks at people who are into the paranormal in that way.
Okay.
So what I've tried to do in my
Okay.
research is be upfront with the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of hucksters out there. There's a lot of UFO videos that are fake, CGI especially,
course.
Photoshop.
Of course.
There's people that go from convention to convention because they got the first taste of attention in their life, and
Yeah.
they keep fabulating a bunch of BS, to keep the gravy train going.
That's what I was telling Zoe the other day. These people charge money and they go to a convention and they sit at a table. I'm not going to mention any names because that's not going to do me any. That's, you don't want to do that. But they set up these shows and these tours, and they go there, and all these people that are so hungry just want to get one of these guys aside and say, "What do you feel about my show? And what do you feel about this? And what do you feel about that? Because I'm so confused and I just want some answers." Well, one of these guys said he happened to be speaking to one of these cats that's on the tour. I'm drinking Perrier water, so it's a little bubbly. So the one guy that he was asking, I'm pretty sure he was one of the top dogs, and said, "If I told you everything that I know, I would be dead." That's what he told.
Yeah.
That's what he told this guy when he went to a convention to have his mind open to get accepted. He said, "If I told you everything, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you right now."
Well, yeah, because there seems to be a faction of the UFO phenomenon that doesn't have our best interest in mind, that are pushing us into a premature. We are not even sociologically advanced enough for an iPhone, much less sentient artificial superintelligence.
Yeah. Hello.
And,
I agree with you. That's a great point.
Probably on a lot of planets, a technological singularity happens like 1,000 years from now, when we're able to get along with each other. And we can't even get along with people whose skin color are different or religion is different. Yeah. And we haven't got our act together in that regard to unify as a planet yet.
I agree.
Physicist Michio Kaku talks about a type 1 globally unified civilization on the Kardashev scale. And he says, we're type 0. We don't have control of the weather yet.
Okay.
We don't have a free energy device yet that supplies free energy to the whole world.
Wow.
And all these things are milestones. So there's one faction of the UFO phenomena that seems to be the angelic presence that is interested in human consciousness expansion and sociological evolution. Okay. And there's this other faction that's kind of negative and usury, and they seem to be pushing us in the technical direction for their own purposes. Okay. Now, there's speculation about what that purpose is. I know several researchers have different ideas about that, and we can discuss that sometime. Right. But just like William Brownlee says, there's the custodial race and the maverick race, and one of them has our best interest in mind. Those are the angelic aliens, and then the other ones are what we would call demonic.
Wow, you're blowing my mind today, mister. Do you have a license for this? Oh my God, it's amazing. I love it. I think you're really so glad we got to put you in today. And is there, I don't even know how long we've been going, but I've enjoyed it so much. That's it's been wonderful. Is there any other points that you want to add to this?
Let's see if I think I'm at the tail end of this.
Okay. Yeah. Close those wonderful show. This is the first time I've had great stuff.
Okay, so
human evolution
is the gradual expansion of consciousness.
Okay.
The crop circle formations that are getting more complex, and the UFO presentations that are getting more complex, who are tapped into the human collective unconsciousness and show us what we're able to see. It goes from limited personal awareness to identification with the vast indwelling soul or the cosmic mind. Now, what's the future of the UFO phenomenon in the crop circles? Well, I fully expect it to go from fractals to Julius set and Mandelbrot set into something even more complicated, where it becomes more and more obvious that humans aren't doing this. And the same thing for the flying saucer phenomenon. I expect a major shift at some point in time as human awareness and knowledge and evolution continues. And who knows what that next presentation of UFOs from the plasma sphere is going to be. I hope I live long enough to see it, because I
Me
think it's going
too.
to be pretty fantastic.
Oh my God, I hope so too.
So
I
it
see
seems,
so.
in my estimation, to have to do with something with the coming technological singularity. And then I just wrap up, with my book, Overlords of the Singularity, which we're
Yeah.
going to have a whole show on at some
Oh
point in
yeah,
time.
coming soon.
So,
That's a
so I
very,
can
that's
get out of this. That's the
yeah.
end of my
Wonderful. Good job, dude. You're
Thanks.
amazing. So glad you came on short notice today, because we were wondering how we were going to fill this slot, because the gentleman in England was very sick. Mark Ollie, he's very, very interesting as well. He doesn't he like this kind of stuff as well, babe?
He's
can't
into
remember.
everything.
He's into everything.
Famous. He's on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, he's a paranormal head as well, but right now he's a cold head. So
What's interesting is I still have a lot of scientist friends, and every once in a while I'll bring up the topic of UFOs, and they immediately throw their hands up and walk away saying, "I'm a scientist."
oh my God.
Like, what they don't realize is the number of credentialed scientists that are deeply invested into the UFO phenomena.
How
Like
bet?
Dr. Jacques Vallée, Gary Nolan's another one. Lex Friedman has him on his podcast, and Gary Nolan is a hardcore scientist, and he's very interested in UFOs. And you've got Avi Loeb, who thinks we've been visited by a Muamua, and has all the reasons why he thinks that was an intelligently controlled craft.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of people with scientific credentials that are taking this seriously now, especially since the government come out recently and said that it's real.
Yeah, well, doesn't science mean the study of studying? We're studying. We're studying. So to claim you're a scientist, what are you a scientist of, dude? So okay, great. You're a scientist of knowing what planets are made of. He's a scientist of knowing how to make a rocket go. Well, there's many scientists that spend day in, day out science. Now they call it pseudoscience or subculture science. But I think it's just as important as anything else, as important as geometry.
It's a big key to reality.
Absolutely.
To the nature of reality. And I think we're at the beginning of knowledge, not the end of knowledge. I don't think we know jack about the cosmos at large. We're just now cracking the ice on the whole ball of wax.
I hope we're here for a little minute. Hope this is going to happen. Where can we find you, and what is your book? Where can we find you so people can read this book and maybe get ready for the interview that's coming up?
His interview is next weekend.
Oh, it is?
Yes. So,
okay, well, that's a little short time, but we still need to tell people where to find the marvelous and wonderful Russell Brinegar.
You used to be able to find me on Facebook, but my account's been suspended.
Yeah, because you're so boisterous.
We all wind up in Facebook jail every once in a while.
Yeah, that's okay.
Saying something that the algorithms don't like.
What are you there when you come back?
That's what the book looks like. It's on Amazon.com. Overlords of the Singularity by Russ Brinegar.
Sure.
It's 545 pages, so at least you got a coffee table.
Wow, that looks wonderful. I wish I had one. Okay. So, and where are you elsewhere besides Facebook? We're just Amazon to find the book.
I just learned how to do self-recording of Zoom and upload to YouTube. So I'll be putting my YouTube channel is Freaky Sideshow.
Oh, nice.
And I'll be putting presentations like this one up in the next couple of weeks, because I've got presentations that I was invited to a convention in 2018, and I put about 3 different presentations together, and I can now record them on Zoom and upload them to YouTube.
See? Wonderful.
So you got the Freaky Sideshow YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook, but I'm suspended for 30 days, so I'll see you in mid-January.
Sweet. That's what they do to all the plasmoids. So then that was wonderful. So we're going to close it up here and say you have a beautiful evening, and thank you for coming on short again. I know Zoe's very appreciative of that, and so am I, because I got to be the interviewer guy. So anything else you want to add? Just say something nice to the world. Do something nice. Don't be afraid of the change, huh?
Right.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, see you later.
See you later.